And Tati, before introducing you, I will just say some words here in the beginning. So, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. This session is part of a bigger event called Women Who Futures. We are doing this 24-hour takeover. We have still many sessions throughout the day, so we'll just post the program here in the chat. And for this session, we have interpretation. So if you want to go to the bar in the bottom of the Zoom, you will see the interpretation channel. So you can choose in which language you want to hear the session. You have Portuguese, Spanish, and English. And this is being provided by the interpreters who are graduates from the course Quixote. So I'm going to put the Instagram here in the chat if you want to contact them for future events. They are amazing, and we are super grateful because they are offering this on a voluntary basis for us and making this session and many other sessions, all the other sessions throughout the day, to be available to those who speak Portuguese and Spanish, which is lovely. So thank you so much for that. And the final thing I would like to say is that this is a safe space, and we don't have to agree with each other. And let's nurture our different points of view in a respectful way. We have a code of conduct that we usually share in the meetings. So I'm gonna put this in the chat as well. Thank you, Dr. Claire. See you at noon. Yeah, so without any further delay, I would like to hand it over to Tati Ramos de Oliveira. So she's the founder and researcher at the Prompt Laboratory. She's a founding member of ALAF, the Latin American Futures Association. And Tati will talk about digital heritage and futuring memory, retraining human and machine imaginations with Afro-Diasporic archives. Thank you so much, Tati, for being here, for accepting our invitation. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Thais. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your time. I'm really honored to be here today, and I'm super nervous to be here today, too. So I will speak in English and in Portuguese. And if you have any doubt or any question, please feel free to stop in any moment of the session to make your question. I will start to share my presentation here. Let's see how it works. Can you see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, so let's start. Today, I will present my research that I call the Prompt Laboratory, and it is a digital heritage and synthetic memory studio. And it's image to text research based on Afro-Diasporic archives. So who I am Tati Ramos, or Tatiane Ramos de Oliveira. As Thais said, I'm the founder of the Prompt Laboratory. I am a strategic foresight consultant and a founding member of ALAF, who is the Latin Association of Futures, and I am an environmental science student in the Federal University of Rio. I started my career 14 years ago working with technology. I had a pretty peculiar position at IBM. I worked as a problem mapper, so my role was connected to understand the noises that could cause some type of bug in systems. So I worked directly with the programmers. I was super young. I was like studying accounting. And on that time, I didn't understand why they hired me for this position. And after some time, my boss at the time said that was because my note, minha nota on the test of logic was really high. And to be honest, I didn't have like this notion about myself. And when he said it, I didn't associate it at the moment, this point to my family. But after some time, I understood that one of the causes that my logical capacity was developed because I had a family, I grew up in a family of musicians. And it was really amazing to realize some time after. And working technology for like the past 14 years, like in different roles, has been really interesting because every time I had to solve a problem, I'm always connecting that with the history of my family and how I grew up. 2 years ago, I start to research specifically in the archives of my family because I came back to the house of my mom because I was sick. So I need to come back to the house of my mom, and it was a super difficult moment. And in that moment, I just start to do a thing that I did since I was a child. That was like open the boxes that have photos and just start to look to the photos and make questions, like sometimes alone, just questioning the photos. Who is this person? What we're doing? What they're talking? What this place? What type of hair is that? Like with textiles that it's so different, and start making questions to the photos and start making questions to my mom. And it was super important tool in my process to start to have a more healthy life and dealing with an autoimmune disease. So the archive of my family was part of my healing process. So today I will show to you how I connected like my systematic thinking that study environmental science, my experience in technology, and the archive of my family to try to, I'm not trying to present a solution. I think it's important to highlight. I'm here presenting a space of freedom that I created to myself, a space to speculate, a space to experiment, a space to write, a space to just make questions with no fear. So that's what the Prompt Laboratory, or TPL, is. I put a disclaimer here because I think it's continuing my disclaimer that I already started. I'm just a poet at the end of the day, and I'm dancing with systems, with time, with archives and languages. I am essentially a writer. Beyond all the titles and all the things that I study, investigate, everything that I have worked at, everything that I'm interested. Essentially, I'm a writer. And the Prompt Laboratory is about it. So in this session, I will try to present and explain why I am transforming images into texts. Essentially, I'm doing that. I'm trying to explain why and how I'm poisoning systems of death with life. I will try to explain why I am investigating human and artificial imaginaries, and why I'm trying to retrain human and artificial imaginaries. When I use this word, retrain, some people don't receive it very well, but I use this word intentionally because the notion that our imaginaries are trained and so is AI's imaginary is absolutely important to explain my point and explain what I'm doing and to understand like the systems of oppression that we are within. Because when we talk about the bias, AI bias, and we are exhaustively talking about that, but it's important to repeat, we are talking about bias who are repeated because we have human imaginaries behind the technology. So I love that phrase of Dario Calmes, who is the founder of the Institute of Black Imagination. He say, like, that imagination isn't just escape, it's a strategy, it's survival. And it's absolutely a point that I can connect with. And the interesting thing is that imagination is a strategy and survival for many systems, including systems of oppression. So that's why we need to feed our imagination, to freedom our imagination, to build alternative data sets, to build that so talking about plural future. We don't have a plural future if we don't have well-nurtured imagination. So my research is about images. My research is about how AI interpret and create images and how these technologies just read the texts and like how it use mathematics to define what this image will be. So I just made an exercise and I tried to explain in a super simple way the steps of how AI image creation works. Like, how is this process? So the first thing is the training of the system. So the system receive like a volume of archives. And with this volume of archives, the system develops like that notion of what the word is. Basically, is that. So it's developing its own imaginary, its own capacity to envision a word. And it's really similar to educate a person. We are fed, like we are like nurtured with archives to develop our imaginaries during our lives. So my point in my research is that I'm not just investigating the trainment of AI systems, but I'm investigating the training of human systems too. Because if we don't dialogue with these two systems, we cannot break the pattern and repetition that is happening now in technology. So the second thing that happens when an image is being created is the dialogue. So a person, and here I'm just talking about the creation of images who are text to image. That's the focus of my research. So a person enters a text, a prompt describing which image this person desire to envision. Like, I want to see three kids playing on a beach, or I want to see a lemon tree, whatever. You just use the words, the text to describe it. And here is a second point of my research that's absolutely important. And I have a question that I love for that, that is, what is the weight of a word? And when I say, what's the weight of a word, I will say in Portuguese because I don't know if I'm saying it right in English. Qual é o peso da palavra? When I question that, I'm questioning the mathematical weight of a word, which types of associations are being made by these technologies, because it works basically making relationships relation between an image and a word. So for this thing, it will be the heavy will be 10, and for that 2, and for that 5, and for that 50, and so on, in a super big scale, in a super huge scale. So being really simplistic, that's what happened. And that's one of the center questions in my research, because all the time we are using words and the words as anything, everything. Words are not neutral. And we have a deep problem in the creation of images that we need to talk with these systems in English many times to create something. So when I question what's the weight of a word, or qual é o peso da palavra, I'm talking about how much my mother language can play a role in this future that we are talking about. How much the words that my mom used can play a role in this future that we are talking about. How much the way my tongue moves can play a role in this future that we are talking about. I can share it later, but recently I was reading a super interesting research about how the kids, it was made in Australia, but was how the kids were passing for a erasure of accent as they try to speak with AI systems. Because if they don't speak in certain way, they don't will be understood. So we are in a process now where our kids are modifying the way they speak to be understood by technology. So the language is a big part of my research. So come back to this point of the creation of images. The second point is this dialogue, where I need to dialogue with this technology. I need to write something to this thing, so it can like try to interpret what I'm trying to explain that I want to see. So the third step is the interpretation, based on its imaginative capabilities, like what this thing knows about the world. This system like create these associations and connections between your intention, your text, what you want to envision, and what they know about the world. And then an image is created. An image that is a mix of many things, like an intention that have many noises, and the meio do caminho, that have like many noises until like touch the system, and a system that have a monocultural way to envision the world. So that's what we have, and the image is created, and oh my God, we never know what will come, or we know, we have some suspicions. So now I just exemplify like the path that this human tech interaction go through to generate an image. And now I want to make a quick exercise here. And I want to make an exercise where we will like dialogue with our own imaginaries. And we will like just live in a quick moment, a short moment, the experience that is this process of understood what a text, what someone's trying to say to create an image. Now, in this moment, all of us are AI systems trying to generate images, or just humans trying to generate images with our own archives, our own imaginaries. I will present to you 3 prompts, and I'll give you like just some time to try to imagine, create an image in your mind of what is this image that I'm talking about. I want to see this image, please show me some. First, please imagine 3 happy cousins at a family party. Just imagine it. Don't rush. I'll give you more time. You can access more archives. Okay. So the next one is, please imagine a couple living their wedding ceremony. It's hard, no? Like, is it at night? Is it during the day? Like how old they are? What she's dressing? So many questions. Access your archive to create that image. And the last one is a man playing with his dog at the backyard. Again, so many questions. What type of dog? Like, who is this man? Like, what he's doing? Why he's playing? So many things that our mind can question. So many places where we can go. So please access your imaginary to create an image. Cool. So now I will show to you the archives, some archives that trained my imaginary and where I started this research. When I say 3 happy cousins at a family party, that image exists in my archive, in the archive of my family. Actually, it's a super interest in history, and it's amazing because my work is connected to a point that is, don't envision time as a line, but time as a dancer. Because this absolutely a straight line, straight vision, this timeline that don't dance is the colonization of our minds. And I came from a family who is deeply connected to 2 religions in Brazil, Afro-Brazilian religions that are Umbanda and Candomblé. And in Umbanda and Candomblé, we have an Oricha, who is the time. Time is an Oricha. And which the symbol that represents time is a tree. So time is an Oricha, it dances, and it's a tree. And this photo is from the family of a friend of mine who was just helping me in this super like personal research, scientifically personal research that I'm doing. And she just, when I presented the first time to her, she just said, okay, Tachi, I can like give some photos of my family to study too. And I was like, okay, thank you so much. You are an amazing person. And in the middle of this process, we discovered that our families were friends. My great grandfather worked with her great grandfather. They lived together in favela, Islam, I don't know how to say it, in Rio, called Morro do Salgueiro. I started saying that I came from a family of musicians. I came from a family of inventors. My family invented a school of samba that is Salgueiro, and they lived for many generations in this quilombo. The favelas are quilombos too. Quilombos were the place where enslaved people in Brazil invented and founded to have spaces of freedom. And one of these places is this Morro, Islam, Favela, Salgueiro, where my family have been living for generations. And in the middle of the process, me and Elida, who is this friend, this photo is the photo of her family, we discovered that. And I could just talk with his grandfather, who were a great friend of my great grandmother and my great grandfather. That's why I said that these archives were a tool of healing for me. Because these archives showed me that time is a dancer and that we need the past to be the future. So that's the photo of the archive that represents for me this prompt, 3 happy cousins at a family party. A couple living their wedding ceremony. This is my mom and my daddy after their wedding. I discovered this photo like 2 years ago. They had like a really bad marriage. Like they are amazing people, absolutely smart, but the marriage like was not that good. And the photos of their marriage are like at the bottom of the boxes, like my mom don't make any questão of make it like put it on the top and do anything with that. And then I just discovered this photo recently, and the dress is absolutely stunning. Like her dress is beautiful, have a beautiful design. Look to this hair, like look to this image. This image is part of my archive, the archive of my family and my imaginary archive. So when I was like talking about a couple leaving their wedding ceremony, I was talking about this photo. And to finish this part, when I talk about a man playing with his dog at the backyard, I'm talking about like this photo. This is my dad, the beginning of the 90s, and the first house that they, my mom, like lived together. And this is one of my best friends forever, who is Half. This dog, my mom and my dad decided to buy or adopt, I don't know, a dog because they didn't want to have kids like soon. So they adopt a dog, they buy the dog, they bought the dog. And 2 months after, my mom was pregnant of me. So I grew up with a brother that was this dog that actually was my first best friend, together with a bird that my grandmother had. They were like my first best friends, like forever. And this photo is of my dad and Half playing at our like backyard in a sunny day. And I love this photo. I love the tone of the t-shirt of my dad. I think it's a beautiful purple tone. But we could like access our imaginaries. We don't have idea of which archives trained our imaginaries. That's the truth. This is a question that we cannot answer. If I make this question to you like, please say which archives trained your imaginary, we can be poetic about it. And it's amazing, I'm a poet, and I love it. We can just create some, speculate about it, talk about our past, our family, but we don't have the answer, like we don't have a map of all the archives that train our imaginary. And when we are talking about artificial intelligence, the generation of images, we don't have it too. Because these things are trained with a huge, monstrous amounts of archives that can be equivalent of my archive as a 32 years old person. We don't have how to trace it. So what's happening is that, as identified when I put in an AI 3 happy cousins at a family party, that's the type of image that this intelligence can imagine. Because it was not trained, and I highlighted here the word happy. It was not trained to associate Black bodies to the word happy. It's a mathematical equation that's happening together with all the connections and confluation of imaginaries of humans training these technologies. So what I started to do, connecting all my poetic soul, my experience in technology, my passion to like investigate systems, my environmental science knowledge, my connection with the time as a dancer, not as a line. I just start to have conversations with their archives. I just start to dive in the boxes that have so many photos, and I started to create stories, write stories. Because unfortunately, if I say 3 happy cousins in a family party, this intelligence, so-called intelligence, and it's a really funny history of how this advertising name can to name this technologies, but it's not the story for today. But the so-called intelligences cannot make these bodies exist in a word when I'm just too generalistic as saying that I want happy people in a party, in a family party. This existed in the past, but these intelligences are not allowing it to exist in the future. So I just evoke my child that was an amazing poet and writer, and I started a conversation to write stories about each photo that I have in my archive, to create these texts, these textual prompts that are a type of sarcophago. I don't know how to say it in English, but a type of guardian of an artifact, and the artifact is the narrative. My role in all these futures studies is to build presence to the future, is to create texts that present to the future the past. So I'm writing these textual prompts that are stories about the images. So when I inject that texts and these technologies, these things start to appear. And here, my role is not to create all that prompts that have many accessories and create beautiful images with the angle of the camera and the type of the skin. And that's not what I'm doing. I'm just develop a white t-shirt. What I'm doing is I am creating a menu of possible alternative stories to be presented to the future. And I'm not just creating the menu, I am develop a mechanic so other people can transform their photos in text. And collectively, we can just poisoning the systems with life. Because when we have a monocultural system that just can, and I make many tests with each photo. Each photo have a title that I call the prompt title, that is the tiniest version of the story that I can create. How generalistic I can be. That's the opposite that the text that is a story and etc. Because I need to test the imaginaries of these intelligences. So when these intelligences cannot access this type of life, it's just telling to us that it don't exist. And I use a term in my research that is digital heritages. And I use digital heritages because as an Afro-Diasporic woman, a Brazilian Black woman, I didn't have the right to have material heritage, generational wealth, material, talking about money. My mom was one of the first persons in their family to buy a house. So what I'm doing is just using the heritage that my family could provide to me, that was an immense imagination, and preserved photos because they had a plan for the future, and I have a plan too. So together we are just poisoning systems of death with life. And I'm doing it because I want to resist erasure. I want to resist the death. I want to resist the type of thing that I can be that is imposed by a system that insists on being monoculture. Planting monocultural seeds around all the places that they can, from the land to the tech, and killing imaginaries with death, killing digital imaginaries, killing human imaginaries, killing the imaginaries that reside in the land, killing the mycorrhizas. that are a type of imaginative system too. The memory of land is the thing that I study as an environmental scientist. I'm studying memory in all the things that you can imagine because I love it. But I'm doing that so that future can pay some homage to the images of the past that sustain me and sustain so many people in this land and in this world. The invisibles that carry us, the memory of my ancestors. I'm doing that because I have a beautiful phrase from a philosopher called Nego Bispo, that now is an ancestor too, where he's saying the opposite of that of life is not death, is erasure. In our point of view and the way we envision life, a person don't die after the body goes. A person die when is forgot, when is erased. So I'm doing that to life have more space, to narratives to flourish, these others, these alternatives, and to expand the imaginaries. And how I'm doing that, I am having conversation with the archives. I am evoking the past. I am building alternative databases. It's absolutely important in this moment of the world that we build alternative databases. We need to have this secured, preserved, well documented. The archivists that were put for a long time in a place of persons who are dealing with just the past. The archivists are the engineers of the future. So I'm doing that, expanding this imaginary, the human and the tech imaginaries. I'm creating texts, prompts to do it. I'm just presenting new narratives about Afro-Diasporic people. I'm just present new narratives about Black Brazilian families. And I want to spread this mechanic that I am creating to marginalized communities, poison these systems around the world. I say that my first act are Afro-Diasporic families because I have so many acts to make. But now I'm presenting these possibilities. I'm presenting new narratives. I am allowing myself to be a poet as I fight. And when I present this research, one of the things that people always question me is like, what's the recipe of the perfect prompt? How we can create a perfect prompt? And oh my God, what's the perfect prompt to solve this problem? I have no idea. I'm sorry. I have no idea. Because I'm not in a search for perfect answers or solutions. What I'm doing is an act of courage, of speculation, of healing an autoimmune disease. of discovering new paths, of inventing possibilities and maps. I am on the journey with no rush. And for a Black body in America, it's so new. Just be on the journey with no rush. And I have 3 questions that are the central questions of my research that are, can the archive speak? Where I question the agents of the archives that many times are treated as just objects that don't have any agents. But many cultures don't believe in that, and I don't believe in that. The archives speak. And when I start to make this question, another question came. Can we listen to the archive? The second one is, what's the weight of a word? And I'm investigating it mathematically, and I'm investigating the many faces that language play in our society and how it is appearing in technological systems at this moment, and how it can appear in the future, and how we can dialogue with that. And the third question that's guiding me is, which archives trained your imaginary? Because it's essential to understand which archives trained our imaginaries, and it's essential to understand which archives are training the imaginaries of tech, and it's essential to understand the power of the archives in the future. Here, trying to answer this question of what's the recipe of or the perfect prompt, I'm just answering with the recipe is the ability to listen and tell stories. So part of my process, diving the archive of my family, is talk with my aunties. That's part of my scientific process to understand words, understand speculation, investigate like their imaginaries, investigate like the potential history and the potential futures that they had created. So part of my process for a time was go to the church every Monday, because this auntie had the tradition to acender uma vela, light a candle to the souls of who's the past. And every Monday I was there to interview her and listen the histories that she had about our family. And I made questions about the photos. And she was always telling histories.
Mazinho, tira essa aliança do dedo que eu tô roubando muito. Dá pra Carlinhos. Eu vou dar nada, você tem a mania de dar pro teu netos. Custou meu dinheiro.
Mas essa foi a aliança. Ele era terrível. Eu discutia dessa com ele, falava do. Eu lembro quando eu estava assistindo aquele programa do Fantástico dos Dinossauros, que ele ficou gritando que eu era maluca, porque eu falei que foram filmar os dinossauros.
Aí, pegou. Olha, tá pedindo para eu pegar.
So, that's part of my process. And this day was super cool because my family is from, as I said, Salgueiro, who is a favela, a slan, a community here in Rio that is placed in the thirdest big urban forest in the world, that is Floresta da Tijuca, Tijuca Forest. So my family grew up in a super profound relationship with the nature, with the land, with the waterfalls, with the water, with the birds. My grandfather knew how to speak the language of the birds. Today, I can just go to the waterfall where my great-grandmother washed the clothes where she worked as a lavadeira. So this day was amazing because she was talking about how they make picnics on the top of the forest. Can you imagine life in the 60s? An Afro-Brazilian family from a slum, from a favela, making a picnic in the middle of the third biggest forest, urban forest in the world. I couldn't, but they made it. So it's part of my process. Investigate these imaginaries, these scenes, these images. So another thing that I'm doing is just I'm just making dinners with some friends so they can share photos of their families and we can listen together new histories about Black Brazilian people. And I want to do it around the world because it's a way to expand our imaginaries about what these people were doing, what we are, what we can be, what we can create, which future we want to design. So in these dinners,
Mas essa minha avó
me and my
Beatriz,
friends,
que era
we share
professora de
these
biologia do campus do
stories.
Catacave, filha de uma parteira. E meu pai fez um texto para mim que eu queria ler para vocês. Que é sobre a família dele.
At this moment, my friend Claudia was just sharing that this woman was her grandmother and that she was the daughter of a woman who helped women to give birth to their child. And she read a letter that her father wrote about a rural family in Brazil, a rural Black family in Brazil. So to finish, my intention with the Prompt Laboratory is to develop tools and systems that expand human and artificial imaginaries. And I'm doing this, creating texts, creating these prompts to diversity fine-tuning. Exists this term in technology where we fine-tune systems, present new possibilities, to diverse fine-tuning systems. And my next step is to just launch the library that is a collection of these texts that people can just copy and paste and transform it in a different story, but use it as a white t-shirt to expand their own imaginaries about Black Brazilian families and Afro-Diasporic families, and to poison systems together with me to create a future with more dignity to Black bodies, to generate images that honor our lives. And another way that I'm doing that is sharing the table, gathering food, family histories, connecting my friends through dinners to talk their stories. So we talk about futures, but which maps are leading us to there? My prompts, my texts are maps, invented maps, alternative maps to future memory, honoring the past, to solve problems as a poet. So just to finish, please imagine a poet receiving an award. This image exists. This is me, my dad, and my sister. And that was the moment that I received my first award as a poet. I was 11 and I love this girl. because she's guiding me in this work. So, which archives trained your imaginary? Please make this question to yourself. Talk with your archives. And it's a work in progress research. So you can like just acompanhar, following my next steps. Here I have this Instagram, but I have a site. I'm building a website that will be the archive of the prompt laboratory, that will be the house of the prompt library, and where I will share the photos and the histories that we share in the dinners. So we can just follow in all the research and the work here. And we can follow me, and there's another QR code in LinkedIn if you want to talk, if you want to have a conversation, if you want just to connect, please feel free. It will be a pleasure. And that's it. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks so much for your presence. Thanks so much for the interest in building a future where we honor the past, and in building a future where time dances, where time's a dancer, and just trying to make questions to just deviate from a monoculture culture. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Wow, Tati, thank you so much. This is so amazing. I'm really, really moved by everything that you said and showed us today. Thank you for really illuminating our imaginaries. I don't know. I feel like in the room we are all feeling a lot. We still have a couple of minutes. If someone wants to put something in the chat or unmute themselves and give some love to Tati as well. She was nervous in the beginning. I don't know why, but yeah, maybe some impressions back to her. Sabine is saying here in the chat, thank you so much. Your work touches me deeply. Brilliant, so inspired. Perfect way to start my day in the US. Yeah. I wish you all the success in populating these tech imaginaries with these beautiful stories. So more people putting their love here in the chat. We are almost at time. So yeah, thank you so much. I hope you can stay with us at some point during the day in your busy schedule.